Last week I did a video and I just talked about um, some of the physical stuff I do to stay in shape. It wasn't about doing any other thing other than explaining how I keep myself from going all to hell. I mean, I'm not trying to be anything in particular, but I'd like to keep a little bit of physicality about me as I get older. So we did that video. But let me tell you something that I know, because when I mentioned I started working out in the 10th grade, that's true with weights we're talking about. What I would have you know is it doesn't matter whether you're trying to gain weight because you're trying to gain muscle, or you're trying to lose weight because you want to lose fat, or whatever it is. I'm going to tell you that 70% of everything you do is your diet. And diet is not defined on some crazy thing that I'm eating. Diet, just the definition of diet is going to be simply what we consume. That's it. What is it that you consume? And some of the things we're going to talk about now are some of the things you should not be eating. And so let's just kind of jump into it. I probably mentioned, now I'm going to say something. I'm going to get there in a sec, but let me say this. If you hear me say what I'm about to say, I'm not bragging. I'm not trying to point any fingers at me. What I'm trying to do is use myself as an example of the same thing that every person listening to this can do. We're not any different. You got a body and I got one. Mine will do what yours does and vice versa. So a couple months ago I did a physical and I did some extensive blood work, and the short story is I came back with about 5 or 6 pages of readouts of literally everything in my blood chemistry, as you go down the list, and organ function, and this whole thing showed me that everything is within a normal range. We'll just leave it at that. There's nothing wrong with me. Okay, I'm very excited about that. The reason I'm excited is I go out in these mountains. You see me sitting here in the mountains. Julie Arts, everybody knows Julie. Julie Arts is sitting here holding the camera. And we're out here in these mountains, and I do a lot of really heavy work with, cutting wood, as I said before. And it really is harder than any weightlifting routine I've ever done. So the short version of that story is I've worked out here for years, scared to death that when I've got 40 or 60 160-pound rounds that I got to pick up and put in a trailer, and I'm dead tired by the time I'm picking up these rounds, I'm crawling back in my Range Rover. I barely can. I think I'm about to have a coronary. So for years I was afraid I could die out here. Well, the end of the story was I got to the doctor. It turns out I'm okay, so get your ass out in the woods and shut up. That's what it comes down to. So I'm okay. But now we got to talk about the diet stuff, because some of you folks are not okay. And I'm going to tell you that if you're looking down or around different parts of your body and you're seeing that you've got a little bit here and there that you wish you didn't have, yeah, you can say, oh gosh, I'm fat or I'm whatever. But this is a byproduct of ill health. That's all. It's a sign. You need to take that as a sign, because that's what it is. And I also want to just very quickly tell you something else. Just because you're not on a gurney being rushed into a hospital right now does not mean you are healthy. And I'm perfect proof, because I'm running around in the woods for years, concerned, am I okay to be out here doing this at my age? Turns out I was. We'll talk about why I was. But just because you're not huffing and puffing and wheezing and thinking you're about to pass out does not mean you're in a decent state of health. And one day, maybe you'll find out. One day, maybe you're riding in an ambulance, or one day the doc is giving you some news you thought you'd never hear. Now, you can avoid all that. So here we go. Julie did some videos, and I'm going to talk about the same thing that Julie was talking about. I don't know if you can see my big old foot here, covered in snow. So here's what I want you to hear. When I go down to the grocery store, I go once a month, because I don't like leaving here. I got to take Valium if I have to leave here. So when I get to the grocery store, I stand around there with my thumb guess where, and thinking, okay, I got a couple $100 and I'm going to go home with, a big box full of food, and I go home with nothing. And so the reason is because I'd say 95% of what they sell in your best grocery store is frickin' garbage. So if you think that you're doing good because, oh, I went to the grocery store and I'm not eating this crap at McDonald's and all this other crap that's out there. You got to start reading the ingredients, folks, because the ingredients in the foods on your shelf are 100% processed. So let me see if I can shorten down this preaching session a little bit. American food industry, it's a bad word. If you go to other countries, and some of you've been and some of you haven't, when you go to other countries, they don't have an American food industry. They don't. And they don't maintain and utilize their foods in the same way that we do. So you grew up believing you can walk into the grocery store and if it's on the shelf, it's a food store, so I'm going to eat it. Yeah, okay. Get your damn glasses on if that's what it takes and go read the ingredients. First thing I see that's in there is sugar is in everything. Sugar is the main thing I want to talk about now. We'll leave the oils and all the things I can't pronounce out for now. Sugar, I don't care if you bought a bottle of ketchup or some salad dressing or... Hold on just a sec. I got to speak to the dog. Charlie, get your ass over here. Come here. All right, park it. So I don't care what you're doing. Sugar's in everything, so let's talk about that very quickly. When you consume the processed sugar that is in literally every bite of food you eat, every bite, folks, think about this, your insulin level goes up. Your body says, I can't have this sugar in there. I can't even use that sugar. I got to convert it to something else just to use it. But that sugar's kind of poisonous. We'll talk about that later. But your insulin level spikes. And so what the job of the insulin is to bring the blood sugar level back down to normal to normal. But how does it do that? Well, it takes all that white sugar that you just consumed in every mouthful, including the bread. I mean, damn, man, go look at the bread you're eating. You think that's a healthy bread? It's not. Before I go on, let's talk about sugar. Here are the words you'll see: sugar, dextrose, fructose, corn syrup, carbohydrate, fructose, and all these other words they do to hide the word sugar. So the insulin is a hormone that your body produces. And the insulin sees this blood sugar, says, I got to get this out of here. This is not good. And it takes all that sugar and it just pushes it into the fat cells. And then you look down and you go, holy smokes. It's like trying to watch your hair grow. Suddenly you got 20 pounds, 30, whatever the case may be. What happens is over time, now I remember when I was a young kid, everything was sugar. Remember, you dumped sugar on the Cheerios and the Frosted Flakes and all this crap you ate as a kid, and you think you did it then, why can't I do it now? Your body's super resilient, and it can put up with that stuff and all this abuse for years and years and years. And after a while, it can't put up with it anymore. So here's something we could talk about: diabetes. Your body just says, I can't take this anymore, and the receptors, with insulin being a hormone, which is a messenger, you have a receptor, which is kind of like my hand. It's like a little antenna. And that antenna is picking up a message from this hormone telling your body to do some function. Insulin's telling the body to get rid of the sugar in the blood. So the insulin receptor gets weak, and they call that insulin resistance. It gets kind of worn out. It's not necessarily true that you're not producing insulin, you just don't get the signal. The antenna's all messed up. And it's because you've got this constant supply of sugar in your blood. So when you become insulin resistant, that turns into diabetes. And then what do the idiot doctors do? Just like the junkie. Takes more heroin to get off. Boom, let's just stick it in your leg and take some more heroin, because I'm resistant to this dosage here. And that's what happens to your body. As you become insulin resistant, terrible things happen to your body. And of course you're getting fatter and you're wondering why. There's another thing that happens that you become resistant to, a hormone called leptin. And leptin is stored in the fat cells themselves. And the fatter you get, the more leptin is stored there. And leptin is the signal that goes to your brain and says, hey fella, ramp up the metabolism and speed it up, and let's burn some of the fat off the fat cells. Now, here's how you'll see that you've actually experienced this, but you didn't know it. You went on some fad diet. I don't know what it was. And it worked. You lost 20 pounds. And then 3 months later, you got it all back. That's because you're all messed up. You're insulin resistant. You're leptin resistant. You went back to eating the same crap you were before. And there you go. So let me see. Let me get my brain on here. So what we learned is you were designed to use as a fuel fat, like animal fats. And so all this stuff the doctors are telling you, like, eat lean meats and all this stuff, it's complete hogwash. It just is. I know that Julie and I bought a big container. It's like 5-gallon jug or whatever the hell it was of beef fat, lard, and we add this to our food. We add it to the food to keep healthy because your body's designed to burn fats for fuel. Now, here's how I might prove that without pulling out all the textbooks and this and that. Think about the people that live way north of Canada up in the Arctic. Think about those folks. And they eat walrus and whales and seals and all this really high fat content blubber, if you will. These people don't have any cardio disease in their culture anywhere that I'm aware of. They're very healthy people. They live a long time. So eating fats is what keeps you healthy. Caveman guys were running around and eating fats. They weren't eating sugar. So here's what we would do to get you to get fat off your body and get yourself healthy. Knock out the sugars. But when we talk about sugars, we have to go into things like grains. We have to talk about grains because grains are high glycemic. In other words, glycemic with discussing blood sugar. Grains are high glycemic in that when you consume a grain, it converts to sugar too quickly. You don't go out in the day to burn that sugar off, and so you store it and you get fat, just kind of like eating white sugar. So I'm not saying that grains necessarily, although I won't eat most of them because they're GMO. That's my choice, and I've done my homework. You do your own. Because they're high glycemic, it's best I keep them out of the diet. And I guarantee you, if I eat high glycemic foods like rice or potatoes or things of this nature, and I do it several days in a row, I can see the difference on my body. I'll see myself gain some weight. There you go on that. So we remove all forms of sugar coming into our body, and we utilize the fats as fuel. And what happens is we're tricking our body. We're tricking our body to for the hormone leptin to start working again. The leptin begins to work. The insulin receptors begin to work, and everything kind of reverts back to normal. Now, I know for a fact, if you do kind of what I'm talking about, you don't have to be a gym rat. If you're one of those guys or gals that says, hey man, I like coming home from work and sitting on my butt and watching TV, go ahead. That's fine. I guarantee you can burn the fat off your body and get healthy without running around and being a gym rat. You absolutely can. If you want to keep your muscle tone up and these things, that's a whole nother discussion. But right now we're just talking about what does it take to make yourself healthy. So when I cut out the sugars and I had to cut down the grains because they affected me in a negative way, and I began to eat the meats, the fatty meats that I talk about. I got rid of some bad oils. Bad oils would be soy is bad because it has an estrogen mimicker in it. The molecule in it is identical to female estrogen, and no one on earth should be taking estrogen and consider themselves healthy. So that's a topic to discuss. And things like canola oil and some other oils, they're really, really bad. What are some of the oils we use? What's one of the oils we use around the house?
Avocado oil.
Avocado
Coconut oil.
Okay, what else?
Coconut oil.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's a thing. You guys hear, I know you do. You hear a lot about the coconut oil. That's a super healthy thing for a ton of reasons. Other topics we can discuss. There are people that have diseases we could name now that if they'd eat coconut oil, their diseases would go away. You've got to start thinking about this. You've got to start thinking about dumping the sugar. Please know that if you do your homework, you will learn that cancer, if you ever got it, cancer is just cells that have been kind of screwed up, but cancer feeds off sugar. So if you put sugar in your body, the cancer's just loving the hell out of you, and guess what? That cancer ain't going away because you're feeding it. As a matter of fact, here's a funny thing besides things we know that kill cancer cells. Those are also other topics. Oxygen kills cancer cells, just pure oxygen. You go into a hyperbaric chamber with pure oxygen, remove the sugar from your body, and you're going to kill cancer cells. But one of the things that sugar does that's so bad is it causes inflammation in the body. And inflammation, I guarantee you, is the very beginning of, just pick a disease, throw a dart on the wall with names of diseases on it, and inflammation is the beginning of all diseases. And it's how that if you know it's how an area in the body, if you're starting to become inflamed in a certain area, you need to start thinking about what you're doing, because you're disrupting that with everything that you do and what you eat. What I want you to get out of this, I'm not getting real technical, but is that you are what you eat. And if you're eating crap all day long because you're ignorant of what's in the grocery store and what the ingredients really are, you're really hurting yourself. And so, at the risk of being so bold, and maybe even you can say I'm a horse's ass if that's what you want to do, I'll accept it, it's okay. But I feel like I'm a good example because I am 64 this year. I don't like admitting that. I don't want to tell you how old I am. But I'm going to do it for the sake of you listening to me. Most people 64, when they walk in, can barely walk and they're all messed up and they're this, that, and the other thing. My doctor looks at me. He thinks I'm 40. I don't think I look that young, but he thinks I'm 40. And he just stands there looking at this paperwork and he's going, "There's not a damn thing wrong with you." And I want to tell him, "Yeah, doc. And look at these people half my age limping in here. And kids in their 20s all messed up. And you need to start listening to me when I talk to you about diet." Have I gotten through to him? Probably not. Have I gotten through to you? So can you use me as an example? Don't think that I'm some anomaly, because I'm not. Julie had type 2 diabetes. Julie had some other problems. She gained a lot of weight in the trucking industry by eating all this crap, sat on her ass 14 hours a day driving a truck. Guess what? Sitting on her ass 14 hours a day, still driving a truck, she's lost 170 pounds. And she's only got, it's a lot, but it's not much compared to what it was. She's got about another 70 to lose max. And then she'll be down to like her high school weight, and she's going to see that high school weight. So I just wished I could get you folks to listen, because I see all this rhetoric going back and forth about this and that. And as I listen to things, again, at the risk of being a horse's ass maybe, I don't feel like all you folks necessarily know what you're talking about. And I'm pretty confident that I do. And if you ever get to know me, what you're going to learn if you get to know me is if you hear me shut up and I'm not talking, it's because I don't know anything about the subject, and I hate being wrong. I hate being wrong more than anything in the world. So if I'm wrong, the very first thing I do is admit I'm wrong, and then move over into the right lane and continue to be right. But if I do know about something, which I think I do here, I don't mind sharing it with you. So that's what I wanted to bring to you today. Cut out the sugars. You need to eat the animal fats and other forms of saturated fats like the coconut oil and the nuts and other things of this nature. And if you'll do this, you'll see the same thing that I did. My body reverted back to complete normalcy. I used to have rheumatoid arthritis. I don't have it anymore. It's gone. Doesn't exist in my body. So, and there's some other things that I had that don't exist in my body because I'm so healthy. So will you listen to that? And then I'm going to click this off, and we'll do another video, and we'll continue this ideology. And if anybody ever has any questions when they see this video posted, just ask. But I'm putting this out here for your sake, and I do care, because I want you to see what I'm seeing. All right, let's sign off.